The keys flew through the air like a weapon. They struck Marcus Webb's face with a sharp crack metal against cheekbone. Blood appeared instantly, a thin red line sliding down his dark skin. Victoria Crane, CEO of a billion-dollar empire, had just thrown her car keys at a janitor. In front of 4 senior engineers. In front of his 7-year-old daughter. No one moved. No one spoke. What she didn't know, what none of them knew, was that the man bleeding in front of her held 3 classified patents with the Department of Defense. And he was the only person alive who could fix her car. Comment your city below so I can see how far this story travels. The blood felt warm against Marcus Webb's skin. He didn't move, didn't flinch, didn't raise his hand to touch the wound. He just stood there, cleaning cart beside him, mop handle still gripped in his left hand, while the metallic taste of humiliation filled his mouth. Hope screamed. His daughter's voice cut through the parking garage like a siren. 7 years old, standing 3 feet away watching her father bleed because a woman in a $15,000 suit had decided he wasn't human enough to speak. Daddy! Marcus finally moved, not toward Victoria Crane, not toward the engineers who stood frozen like cowards. He moved toward his daughter, kneeling down, placing his body between her and the woman who had just drawn his blood. "It's okay, baby. Daddy's okay." "She hurt you." Hope's voice cracked. Tears streamed down her cheeks. She threw. Shh. I know. Marcus pulled her close, her small body trembling against his chest. "Don't look, sweetheart. Don't look at her." Victoria Crane stood 5 feet away, arms still extended from the throw fingers curled into a fist. Her face was pale. Not with shame, not yet. With rage. Pure, concentrated, pressure-cooked rage that had been building all morning and had finally found a target. "I said get out!" Her voice echoed off the concrete walls. "Security! Someone get security and remove this man from my building." Harrison Cole, chief engineer, age 52, 23 years with the company, took 1 step forward, then stopped. His eyes moved from Victoria to Marcus, to the little girl crying into her father's chest. His mouth opened, closed. He looked at the floor. None of the other engineers moved either. 4 men. 4 educated, accomplished, well-paid men. And not one of them said a word. Marcus stood slowly, lifting Hope into his arms. She buried her face in his neck, still crying. The blood from his cheek smeared against her school uniform, leaving a red streak on the white fabric. "I'm leaving, ma'am." His voice was steady, quiet. The kind of quiet that comes from years of practice, years of swallowing words that wanted to come out as screams. "I apologize for the intrusion." He turned toward the exit. "Apologize." Victoria's heels clicked against the concrete as she stepped closer. "You come into my private garage, interrupt my engineer's claim. You can fix a $3 million car that you probably couldn't afford to touch, and you think an apology covers it." Marcus kept walking. "I'm talking to you." He stopped, didn't turn around. Hope whimpered against his shoulder. "Ma'am, with respect, you're not talking to me, you're talking at me. There's a difference. And my daughter is scared, so I'm going to take her somewhere safe now." He took another step. "Harrison," Victoria snapped. "Stop him." Harrison Cole finally moved. He walked toward Marcus, positioning himself between the janitor and the exit. His face was a mask of discomfort, the expression of a man who knew he was doing something wrong but lacked the courage to refuse. "Sir, I'm going to need you to wait here until security arrives." Marcus looked at him. Really looked. Harrison was taller, heavier, 15 years older. But there was something in Marcus's eyes that made the engineer take a half step backward. Something that didn't match the janitor's uniform. "Mr. Cole," Marcus's voice dropped low. "My daughter just watched a woman throw keys at her father's face. She's crying. She's scared. She's 7 years old, and she has a fever, which is why I picked her up from school 30 minutes ago. Now you can try to stop me from taking her somewhere safe. You can put your hands on me if that's what you're planning to do. But I promise you, I promise you on everything I have left in this world that will be the worst decision you make today." Harrison's jaw tightened. His eyes flicked to Victoria, who nodded sharply. "Sir, Daddy." Hope lifted her head from his shoulder. Her voice was small, raw from crying. "I want to go home, please. I want to go home." Something broke in Harrison's face. He stepped aside. Marcus walked past him without another word. Victoria watched them go. Her heart was pounding. Her hands were shaking. She felt hot and cold, at the same time adrenaline flooding her system like poison. The keys lay on the concrete floor where they'd fallen after striking the janitor's face. One of them was smeared with blood. "Miss Crane." Thomas Bennett, one of the junior engineers, spoke hesitantly. Should we get back to the car?" Her voice was ice. "Figure out what's wrong with it. Now." The engineers returned to the Koenigsegg, but their movements were different now. Slower. Uncertain. They glanced at each other at the blood on the floor at the exit where Marcus and Hope had disappeared. Harrison picked up the keys, wiped them on his pants, set them on the car's hood without looking at Victoria. She felt something twist in her stomach, ignored it. "Status," she demanded. "Same as before." Harrison's voice was flat. "Diagnostics show every system functioning normally. But when we engage the ignition..." "Show me." Harrison pressed the start button. The dashboard lit up beautifully, every indicator green, every system responsive. Then the starter engaged, and that sound came again. A stuttering hum, like the car was trying to catch its breath and failing. After 3 seconds, nothing. Silence. The Singapore delegation lands in 90 minutes. Victoria checked her watch. Pearson's on that flight. Michaels, the chairman of their entire infrastructure committee. They're expecting me to personally drive them to the meeting, in this car. "I understand, Miss Crane. We're doing everything we can." "Then do it faster." She stepped away from the car, pulling out her phone. 3 missed calls from her assistant. 2 from board members. 1 from David Chen, her COO, probably wanting to discuss the meeting prep. She ignored all of them. Her reflection stared back at her from the car's polished surface. 34 years old, CEO of Reynolds Dynamics, controller of $14 billion in annual revenue, employer of 3,000 people, and right now she looked like what she felt, a woman on the edge of something cracking. The blood was still on the floor. Nobody had cleaned it up. Marcus made it to the employee break room on the 4th floor before his hands started shaking. He set Hope down on one of the plastic chairs, grabbed a paper towel from the dispenser, and pressed it against his cheek. The cut wasn't deep, keys weren't exactly sharp, but it had bled enthusiastically, and his uniform shirt was ruined. "Daddy." Hope's voice was still trembling. Why did she do that? He knelt in front of her, took her small hands in his. "Baby, some people, when they're scared, when things aren't going the way they want, they get angry. And sometimes they take that anger out on whoever's closest. But you didn't do anything wrong?" "No, I didn't." "So it's not fair." "No, sweetheart. It's not fair." Hope's lower lip quivered. "I hate her." Marcus's heart broke a little. 7 years old, and already learning that the world contained people who would hurt you for no reason. He'd spent 4 years trying to protect her from that lesson. Today, he'd failed. Don't hate her, baby. Hate is heavy. It takes up space in your heart that could be filled with better things. "But she hurt you." "I know, and I'm angry too. But being angry and hating are different things. Angry can go away. Hate stays." Hope looked at him with her mother's eyes, Sarah's eyes, dark and deep and full of questions that deserved better answers than he could give. "Are you going to be in trouble?" Marcus sighed. "Maybe. Probably. Because you tried to help? Because I spoke when I wasn't supposed to? That's stupid." He almost laughed. "Yeah, baby, it is." The door to the break room opened. Marcus tensed, expecting security, expecting to be escorted out of the building he'd worked in for 4 years without ever causing a problem. Instead, it was Janet Morrison. 62 years old, worked the day shift on floors 20 through 30. She'd been with the company longer than almost anyone. She took one look at Marcus's face, and her expression hardened. "I heard what happened. Word travels fast. Building this size gossip moves faster than the elevators." She walked to the first aid kit mounted on the wall, pulled out antiseptic and bandages. "Let me see that cut." "Janet, you don't have to." "Boy, I've got grandchildren older than you. Sit down and let me help." Marcus sat. Janet cleaned the cut with practiced efficiency, while Hope watched, still sniffling. "Who's this little angel?" "My daughter, Hope." "Pretty name." Janet smiled at the girl. "You're being very brave, Hope. Your daddy raised you right." Hope managed a small smile in return. "They're going to fire me," Marcus said quietly. "That woman, Victoria Crane. I know exactly who she is." Janet's voice carried decades of carefully managed contempt. "Been CEO 3 years now. Thinks she built this company herself, even though her grandfather started it in 1952, and her daddy ran it for 30 years before her. It doesn't matter who she is. I embarrassed her in front of her engineers. She won't let that go." Janet applied the bandage with surprising gentleness. "What exactly did you say to embarrass her?" "I told her I could fix her car." Janet's hands paused. "Her car. That supercar she keeps in the executive garage. It won't start. I heard it trying to turn over. I know what's wrong with it." Janet studied his face. "You know what's wrong with a $3 million hypercar that 4 engineers can't figure out?" "Yes, ma'am." "How?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then, "I used to be someone else." Janet finished applying the bandage. She stepped back, looked at him the way she might look at a puzzle missing its final pieces. "I've worked in this building for 22 years, Marcus. I've cleaned the offices of executives who thought they were gods. I've watched this company go through 3 CEOs, 2 scandals, and 1 near bankruptcy. I've seen janitors promoted and vice presidents fired, and in all that time, I've learned one thing." "What's that?" "The most dangerous people in any building are the ones nobody notices, because they hear everything, see everything, and usually they're smarter than the folks in the corner offices." She patted his shoulder. "Whatever you used to be, Marcus Webb, I don't think you're done being it yet." Falna. 45 minutes later, Victoria's phone rang. She was standing in the parking garage watching her engineers fail for the dozenth time when the call came through. Her assistant, Rebecca. "Miss Crane, I have the information you requested on the janitor." Victoria stepped away from the group. "Go ahead." "His name is Marcus Webb, age 38, been with the company 4 years, night shift custodian, 4th floor. High school diploma listed on his application, no college." "That's it." "That's what's in his personnel file, but—" Rebecca hesitated. "I did some additional digging, social media, public records. Miss Crane, there's something strange." "Strange how?" "He has no digital footprint before 2020. No Facebook, no LinkedIn, no photos tagged anywhere. It's like he didn't exist until he applied to work here." Victoria frowned. "That is strange." "I thought so too. So I called a friend who works at a background check firm. Off the record. She found something." "Tell me." Marcus Webb graduated from MIT in 2008, full scholarship. Top of his class in mechanical engineering with a specialization in— Miss Crane. "This is the strange part. Acoustic engineering. Sound-based mechanical diagnostics." Victoria's breath caught. After graduation, he was recruited by a defense contractor. Worked on classified projects for the DoD for 8 years. Published 3 papers that are still referenced in military engineering programs. He holds classified patents for acoustic detection systems used by the Navy. A defense contractor. Victoria's mind was racing. He was a defense engineer. One of the best in the country from what my friend could tell. Then in 2016, everything stops. No more publications. No more employment records. His wife's death certificate shows up that year. Car accident. Their daughter survived. He quit his job, moved 3 times in 2 years, and eventually applied for a janitor position at Reynolds Dynamics, claiming he needed steady night work. Victoria stared at the concrete floor. At the smear of blood, she still hadn't asked anyone to clean. "Miss Crane, are you still there? The man I threw keys at. The man whose face is bleeding because of me. He's a genius." "It appears so, yes." Victoria ended the call without saying goodbye. She walked slowly back to the car. The engineers were still working, but their body language told the story. Hunched shoulders, quiet voices. They were going through motions now, not actually troubleshooting. They had no idea what was wrong. "Harrison." He looked up. "Miss Crane, we've tried recalibrating the—" "Stop." He stopped. Victoria looked at the car, at the blood on the floor, at her keys still sitting on the hood where Harrison had left them. "I need to find the janitor, Marcus Webb. Where would he be right now?" Harrison blinked. "Ma'am?" "The man I hit with my keys. Where is he?" We could check with building security." "Then, check. Now." Harrison pulled out his phone, made a call. Victoria waited, her mind churning. A MIT graduate. A defense engineer. A man who specialized in acoustic mechanical diagnostics, literally the science of listening to machines. And she had thrown keys at his face. "He's in the 4th floor break room," Harrison reported, "with his daughter. Building security was about to escort him out, but he hasn't left yet." Victoria was already walking toward the elevator. The break room door opened. Marcus saw her first. Victoria Crane standing in the doorway, her face unreadable. No security guards behind her. No engineers. She was alone. Hope pressed closer to her father's side. "Mr. Webb." Marcus stood slowly, positioning himself between his daughter and the CEO. "Ma'am?" "I know who you are." The words hung in the air. Marcus felt something cold move through his chest. 4 years of being invisible. 4 years of building a quiet life where nobody asked questions and nobody looked too closely. 4 years destroyed in one morning. "I don't know what you mean, ma'am." "MIT DARPA contractor. Acoustic engineering. 3 classified patents." Victoria stepped into the room. "You spent 8 years as one of the top mechanical engineers in the country, and now you clean floors in my building." Marcus said nothing. "Why?" Victoria's voice cracked slightly. "Why would you give all of that up to become this?" "This." Marcus's voice was quiet but sharp. "You mean a janitor? A man who cleans toilets. The kind of person you throw keys at." Victoria flinched. Actually flinched like the words had physical weight. "I deserved that." "Yes, ma'am. You did." "I'm sorry." "Are you?" "Yes." Victoria took a breath. "I'm sorry I threw my keys at you. I'm sorry I drew blood. I'm sorry I humiliated you in front of your daughter. I was angry and scared, and I took it out on someone I saw as beneath you." "Yes." The word came out broken. "I saw you as beneath me, and I was wrong. About everything." Hope looked up at her father, then at Victoria. Her small voice cut through the tension. "You're the mean lady." Victoria knelt down, bringing herself to Hope's level. "I am. I was very mean. And I'm very sorry." "Daddy says sorry is just words." "Your daddy is right. It is just words." Victoria met the child's eyes. "What would make it real for you?" Hope thought about it. "Fix it." "Fix what?" "Whatever you broke." Victoria looked at Marcus. Something passed between them, an understanding maybe, or the beginning of one. "Mr. Webb, I need your help. My car won't start. My engineers can't figure out why. And you told me you know what's wrong with it. I do. Will you fix it? Marcus looked at his daughter, at the bandage on his cheek, at the woman kneeling on the floor of a break room asking a janitor for help she desperately needed. I'll fix your car, Miss Crane, but not for you. Then for who? Marcus lifted Hope into his arms. She wrapped herself around him, head on his shoulder, the way she always did when she felt safe. For every person in that garage who watched you throw those keys and said nothing, because they've all been where I am, invisible, disposable, waiting for someone powerful to remember they're human. He walked toward the door past Victoria and stopped. I'll fix your car, and then you're going to apologize to every single one of them, not to me, to them, because they need to hear it more than I do. He kept walking. After a moment, Victoria followed. Whoa. The parking garage fell silent when they returned. Harrison saw them first, the CEO and the janitor walking side by side, a little girl in the janitor's arms. His face went pale. The other engineers stopped what they were doing, tools freezing mid-motion. Victoria walked to the center of the group. Marcus stood to the side, Hope still clinging to his neck. Everyone stop what you're doing and look at me. They looked. An hour ago, I threw my keys at this man's face. Victoria's voice carried through the garage. I drew blood. I called him the man who cleans my toilets. I treated him like he was nothing, and all of you watched. All of you said nothing. Nobody moved. Nobody breathed. I'm going to apologize to him. But first, I'm going to apologize to you. Because every single one of you has been made to feel invisible at some point in your careers. By someone with power. By someone who forgot that titles don't make people valuable, character does. She paused. I forgot that today, and I'm sorry you had to witness it. Thomas Bennett, the youngest engineer, spoke first. Miss Crane, we all understand the pressure you're under. Don't. Victoria cut him off. Don't excuse what I did. Don't rationalize it. It was wrong. Full stop. She turned to Marcus. Mr. Webb, I apologize, not because you're a genius who can fix my car. Because you're a human being and I treated you like you weren't. I was wrong. I'll spend a long time trying to be better. Marcus looked at her for a long moment. Then he handed Hope to Janet Morrison, who had somehow appeared in the garage and walked toward the car. Phillips' head screwdriver. Harrison fumbled through the toolkit, handed it over. Marcus crouched by the open hood. His eyes closed. His head tilted at that angle, Hope knew so well, the one that meant he was listening to something nobody else could hear. Your engine management system received a software update yesterday, he said quietly. The update changed the firing sequence by 0.003 seconds, within normal parameters for standard engines. But this engine was hand-built, tighter tolerances. That tiny shift created a resonance cascade. The pistons are trying to fire, but they're out of phase with valve timing. The computer thinks everything is fine because technically everything is within range, but mechanically it's locked. Harrison's mouth opened, closed, opened again. That's impossible. We tested that update on standard engines. Marcus reached into the engine compartment. Not hand-built ones. His hand found something deep inside the machinery. A component most people didn't know existed. A mechanical override valve for micro-adjustments in timing. He made one adjustment. A quarter turn. Maybe less. Hope, baby. Count to 30. His daughter's voice clear and steady now. 1, 2, 3. The garage held its breath. 28, 29, 30. Marcus stood, stepped back. Try it now. Victoria moved to the driver's seat. Her hand trembled slightly as she reached for the ignition. She pressed the button. The engine roared to life. Perfect. Powerful. The sound of a $3 million machine doing exactly what it was designed to do. Harrison ran the diagnostics. His face went white. The resonance pattern is gone. The timing is perfectly synchronized. He looked at Marcus like he was seeing a ghost. How did you know? Marcus wiped his hands on his janitor's uniform, walked over to Janet Morrison, took his daughter back into his arms. I listened. He started walking toward the exit. Mr. Webb. Victoria's voice stopped him. I'm offering you a position, senior mechanical consultant, $250,000 a year, full benefits. You'd work with Harrison's team on... No thank you, ma'am. She blinked. What? No thank you. He turned to face her. I've had that life. I know what it costs. My wife died while I was 3,000 miles away working on a project I couldn't even tell her about. My daughter was in that car with her. She survived. Her mother didn't. The garage went silent. I quit my career the day I buried my wife. I became a janitor because the night shift lets me be there when Hope wakes up. Because no one expects anything from me except clean floors. Because I finally learned that success isn't about what the world sees. It's about what matters when you close your eyes at night. He held his daughter tighter. You can keep your $250,000, Miss Crane. I've got everything I need. He walked out of the garage. Behind him, Victoria Crane stood next to her $3 million car, surrounded by engineers, utterly, completely alone. And for the first time in her life, she understood what she'd been missing. Victoria didn't move for a long time after Marcus left. The engine purred beside her, perfect and powerful, but she couldn't hear it. All she could hear was his voice. My wife died while I was 3,000 miles away. My daughter was in that car with her. She survived. Her mother didn't. Harrison cleared his throat. Miss Crane, the Singapore delegation. I know. Her voice came out hollow. I know. She walked to the driver's seat like someone moving through water. The leather felt cold against her back. The steering wheel felt foreign in her hands. She had driven this car 100 times, but today it felt like sitting in a stranger's vehicle. Miss Crane. Harrison again hovering near the window. Are you all right? No. The word escaped before she could stop it. No, Harrison. I'm not all right. She pulled out of the garage without looking back. The drive to the airport should have taken 20 minutes. Victoria made it in 15, weaving through traffic with mechanical precision, while her mind replayed the morning on an endless loop. The keys leaving her hand. The sound they made hitting flesh. Hope's scream. Marcus's blood on the concrete floor. And then his voice, quiet and devastating. I've got everything I need. When was the last time she could say that? When was the last time she had everything she needed? The Singapore delegation was waiting at the private terminal. Richard Pearson, 72. White hair, permanent tan. The kind of man who had been rich so long he'd forgotten what money actually meant. Beside him, Michael Tan and Sarah Okonkwo, both in their 50s, both carrying the careful expressions of people about to spend $5 billion. Victoria stepped out of the car, smiled, extended her hand. Mr. Pearson, welcome to the city. Miss Crane. Pearson's handshake was firm, practiced. Beautiful car. Is that the Koenigsegg Jesko? It is. I heard they only made 125 of them. 124, actually. One was damaged in transit. Pearson laughed. A woman who knows her machines. I like that. If only you knew, Victoria thought. If only you knew how little I actually understand. The meeting went well. Of course it did. Victoria had prepared for 6 weeks. She knew every number, every projection, every possible objection before it was raised. She answered questions with precision. She navigated concerns with grace. She closed the deal in 4 hours instead of the projected 6. $5 billion. Secured. Her team celebrated. Champagne appeared. Handshakes and congratulations echoed through the conference room. Victoria smiled and nodded and said all the right things, and the whole time she felt like she was watching herself from somewhere far away. At 8 o'clock she returned to her office, closed the door, sat at her desk in the dark. The personnel file was still there. Marcus Webb. Janitor. Genius. Father. She opened it again. Read it again. Studied the photo, a standard employee ID picture taken 4 years ago. He looked younger in it somehow, less worn. But even then there was something in his eyes. A depth that didn't match the uniform. Her phone buzzed. David Chen, her COO. Victoria, incredible work today. The board is thrilled. Pearson specifically mentioned how impressed he was with your presentation. Thank you, David. We should celebrate. Dinner tomorrow, that new place on 5th. Maybe. I'll let you know. She ended the call, set the phone down, stared at Marcus's photo. Then she did something she hadn't done in years. She cried. Not sobbing, not wailing, just tears sliding down her cheeks in the darkness, carrying with them the weight of everything she had refused to feel. The loneliness, the fear, the constant exhausting performance of being Victoria Crane, CEO, Ice Queen, untouchable. She cried for the woman she had been before she built these walls, for the girl who used to laugh easily and trust freely, for the person she might have become if she hadn't been so afraid of being seen as weak. And she cried for Marcus Webb, who had lost his wife and found his way back to what mattered, who had chosen invisibility over ambition, who had everything he needed while she had everything she wanted, and it wasn't the same thing at all. The next morning, Victoria arrived at the office at 6 a.m. She went straight to Human Resources. Karen Mitchell, the HR director, was already there. She always was. Miss Crane? Karen looked surprised. Is everything all right? I need to see the personnel file for Marcus Webb. Complete file. Everything we have. Karen's expression shifted. The janitor I heard there was an incident yesterday. I need the file, Karen. Of course. Give me 5 minutes. The complete file was thicker than Victoria expected. 4 years of employment records. Performance reviews all excellent. Attendance perfect. Not a single complaint. Not a single disciplinary action. There was also a benefits enrollment form. Marcus had listed Hope as his sole dependent. Emergency contact Janet Morrison colleague. No family, no backup. Just a man and his daughter and a woman who worked the day shift. Karen, what do you know about Marcus Webb? Personally, I mean. Karen considered the question. Not much. He keeps to himself. Works his shift, does his job, goes home. The other custodians respect him, but he's not social, very private. Has he ever mentioned his past? His education? No. But honestly, Miss Crane, we don't ask. Most of our custodial staff have complicated histories. It's not our place to dig. Victoria nodded slowly. Thank you, Karen. That's all. She returned to her office with the file, but she didn't open it again. Instead, she sat by the window and watched the sunrise over the city, thinking about all the invisible people who moved through this building every day. The ones who cleaned the floors and emptied the trash and made sure the lights worked. The ones she had never really seen. How many of them had stories like Marcus's? How many geniuses were hiding in plain sight, choosing obscurity because the world had broken them in ways that success couldn't fix? At 9 a.m., her assistant knocked. Miss Crane, your 9:30 is here early. Should I? Push it to 10. I need an hour. Of course. Victoria pulled out her phone. Found a number she hadn't called in 3 years. Her brother James. He answered on the 4th ring. Vicky? His voice was cautious. Everything okay? I don't know. I think I need to talk. Silence. Then, I've got time. She told him everything. The car, the engineers, Marcus and Hope, the keys and the blood and the apology that came too late. She told him about the MIT degree and the classified patents and the wife who died while her husband was saving the world somewhere far away. James listened without interrupting. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Sounds like you met someone who figured out what you haven't yet. What does that mean? It means you've spent your whole life trying to prove you belong. To Dad. To the board. To every man who looked at you and saw a girl playing dress-up in the corner office. You built walls so high that nobody can hurt you anymore." He paused. "But Vicky, nobody can reach you either." "I'm the CEO of a $14 billion company, James. I think I've proven enough." "Have you? Because you just told me you cried alone in your office for the first time in years. You told me a janitor made you feel something you've been running from since Mom died. That doesn't sound like someone who's proven anything. That sounds like someone who's exhausted." Victoria felt the tears threatening again. Pushed them down. "I don't know how to be different." "Start small. That janitor Marcus. You offered him a job. He said no. Why do you think that is? Because he doesn't want what I'm selling. No, because what you're selling isn't what he needs. You offered him money and status. He needs something else." "What?" "I don't know, Vicky, but if you want to find out, you're going to have to do something you've never done before." "What's that?" "Listen." The word hit her like a punch. Listen. The same thing Marcus had said when Harrison asked how he knew what was wrong with the car. I listened. "James, I have to go." "Vicky. Thank you. Really. I needed this." She ended the call. Sat for a moment, letting her brother's words settle. Then she made a decision. That night, she stayed late. Not working, waiting. Marcus's shift started at 11 p.m. At 10:45, she took the elevator down to the 4th floor. The hallway was empty. Most employees had gone home hours ago. The only sounds were the hum of the ventilation system and the distant whir of the elevators. At 11:03, she heard the cleaning cart. Marcus appeared around the corner, pushing his cart with practiced efficiency. He saw her and stopped. His expression didn't change, but something shifted in his posture. Wariness. Caution. "Miss Crane." "Mr. Webb." "Building's closed. Executive level is on 42. "I know where my office is." "Then why are you here?" Victoria took a breath. "I wanted to talk to you. Not about a job, just talk." Marcus studied her for a long moment. Then he resumed pushing his cart. "I've got work to do." "I know. I won't take much of your time." "You already took plenty yesterday." "I deserve that." He stopped again, looked at her. Really looked the way he had looked at the engineers in the garage. Like he was seeing past the surface to something underneath. "What do you want, Miss Crane?" "Really?" Victoria felt the walls she'd built start to tremble. Every instinct told her to deflect to maintain control, to give a polished answer that revealed nothing. Instead, she told the truth. "I want to understand. How you walked away from everything you built. How you chose to become invisible. How you found peace with that choice." "You think I found peace? Didn't you?" Marcus leaned against his cart. The fluorescent lights cast harsh shadows across his face, but his eyes were soft, thoughtful. "Peace isn't something you find, Miss Crane. It's something you build. Every day. Every choice. When I wake up and hope is there, that's a brick. When I cook her breakfast and walk her to school and help her with homework, those are bricks. When I come here at night and do honest work for honest pay, that's a brick. But your talent, your abilities, don't you feel like you're wasting them? Wasting them." Something flickered in his eyes. "I used my talents for 8 years. Built things I can't tell you about. Solved problems that would make your engineers weep. And you know what I got for it? A missed phone call. My wife's voice on a recording telling me she loved me 2 hours before a drunk driver killed her." Victoria's breath caught. "I was in a classified facility in Nevada when Sarah died. Couldn't leave. Couldn't tell anyone why I couldn't leave. By the time I got to the hospital, Hope had been alone for 6 hours. 7 years old, sitting in a waiting room covered in her mother's blood, asking every nurse who walked by when her daddy was coming." He stopped, collected himself. "So, no, Miss Crane. I don't feel like I'm wasting anything. I feel like I finally learned what matters." Victoria didn't know what to say. For once in her life, she had no strategy, no carefully prepared response. She just stood there, feeling the weight of his words. "I'm sorry." Her voice was barely a whisper. "I'm so sorry." You didn't kill my wife? No, but I treated you like you were less than human. And after everything you've been through. She shook her head. I can't imagine. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then, unexpectedly, he almost smiled. You know what the worst part is? I'm not angry at you. I was angry at the world for a long time after Sarah died. Angry at God, at the universe, at every driver on every road who wasn't paying attention. But anger is like acid. It destroys the container before it touches anything else. So how did you stop being angry? Hope. Your daughter. And the concept. His smile grew slightly. Sarah named her that for a reason. She always said hope was the only thing stronger than fear. Took me a long time to understand what she meant. Victoria thought about that. Thought about all the fear that had driven her life. Fear of failure. Fear of weakness. Fear of being seen as anything less than perfect. I don't know how to stop being afraid, she admitted. Neither do I. But I know how to keep going anyway. They stood in the empty hallway, CEO and janitor separated by titles and tax brackets, but connected by something deeper, something human. Mr. Webb, I'm not going to offer you a job again, but I would like to ask you something. What? Would you be willing to teach me not engineering, not acoustics, just how to listen, how to see what I've been missing? Marcus considered the question. His eyes moved to the hallway behind her, to the empty offices and dark conference rooms, to the building that represented everything she had achieved and everything she had lost to achieve it. Hope has a piano recital next Tuesday, he said finally. She's been practicing for 3 months. Drove me half crazy with the same piece over and over, but she's good, really good. Victoria waited. Come to the recital. Sit in the audience. Watch a 7-year-old girl play Chopin like her heart depends on it. And when she's done, when she looks out at the crowd to find her daddy's face, pay attention to how that feels. And then come find me. Tell me what you learned. He pushed his cart forward, moving past her down the hallway. She didn't try to stop him. At the corner he paused, looked back. Tuesday, 6 p.m. Washington Elementary School Auditorium. And Miss Crane. Yes. Don't be late. He disappeared around the corner, the sound of his cart fading into silence. Victoria stood alone in the empty hallway for a long time. Then she pulled out her phone, opened her calendar, and typed Hope's recital. Washington Elementary, 6 p.m. She added a note beneath it. Learn to listen. 3 days later, she sat in a folding chair in a school auditorium, surrounded by parents and grandparents and siblings, watching a 7-year-old girl with her father's serious expression walk to a piano that was slightly out of tune. Hope sat down, adjusted the bench, placed her small hands on the keys. And then she played. The piece was Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major, simple by concert standards. But Hope played it like she was having a conversation with someone only she could see. Her fingers moved with certainty, her body swaying slightly with the music, her face transformed by concentration and joy. Victoria found herself leaning forward, found herself holding her breath during the difficult passages and releasing it when Hope navigated them perfectly. Found herself for the first time in longer than she could remember completely present in a moment that had nothing to do with business or success or proving anything to anyone. When Hope finished, the auditorium erupted in applause. The little girl stood bowed awkwardly and immediately searched the crowd. Victoria watched her find Marcus, watched her face light up like the sun breaking through clouds, watched her run off the stage and into her father's arms. And she felt something crack open in her chest, something that had been sealed shut for so long she'd forgotten it existed. After the recital, she found Marcus in the parking lot. Hope was chattering excitedly about the standing ovation. There hadn't really been one, but nobody was going to correct her, and Marcus was listening with the patient attention of a man who understood that these small moments were the entire point. Miss Crane? He noticed her approaching. You came? I said I would. Lots of people say things. Hope tugged her father's sleeve. "Daddy, is that the car lady?" "Yes, sweetheart." "She doesn't look mean anymore." Victoria knelt down to Hope's level. "I was mean. I was very mean to your daddy. But I'm trying to be better." Hope studied her with those ancient eyes. "Did you like my piano?" "I loved your piano. You played beautifully." "I practiced every day, even when I didn't want to." "That's what makes it beautiful. The practice, the trying." Hope considered this. Then she nodded, apparently satisfied. "Okay. You can be nice now." Marcus laughed. Actually laughed, a sound Victoria realized she had never heard from him. "I think you just got Hope's official approval. I'm honored." And she meant it. They walked together toward the parking lot exit. Hope skipped ahead, still riding the high of her performance. "So," Marcus said, "what did you learn?" Victoria thought about the question, thought about the recital and the music and the look on Hope's face when she found her father in the crowd. "I learned that listening isn't about waiting for someone to finish talking. It's about being present, completely present. No agenda, no judgment, just there." That's a start. "I also learned that I've been so focused on achieving things that I forgot to experience them. I've been so busy proving I belong that I never stopped to ask if I actually wanted to be where I was." Marcus nodded slowly. "And do you want to be where you are?" Victoria looked at the sky, at the stars beginning to appear as the sun set, at the little girl skipping ahead of them, full of joy and completely unaware of how rare that was. "I don't know, but for the first time in a long time I want to find out." They reached her car, the rental she'd been driving since the supercar felt too heavy to carry. "Thank you, Mr. Webb, for the invitation, for the lesson." "Marcus," she blinked. "What?" "My name is Marcus. If you're going to learn to listen, you might as well start by hearing what people actually want to be called." A smile tugged at Victoria's lips. "Thank you, Marcus. I'm Victoria." "I know who you are." "Do you?" He met her eyes, held them for a moment. "I'm starting to." He turned and walked toward his daughter. Victoria watched them go, a father and his child walking into the evening like they had all the time in the world. Because they did. They had chosen what mattered, and everything else was just noise. Victoria got in her car, started the engine, sat for a moment in the parking lot, watching the last of the families filter out of the school. Then she drove home, and for the first time in years, she didn't think about work once. She thought about piano music, about a little girl's joy, about a man who had learned to listen, and she thought about what it might feel like to finally, truly hear. 3 weeks passed, and Victoria began to change in ways that unsettled everyone around her. She started arriving at meetings without her laptop. She asked questions and then actually waited for answers instead of cutting people off mid-sentence. She walked through the building differently, slower, noticing faces she had never seen before. David Chen cornered her after a board presentation. "Victoria, what's going on with you?" "What do you mean?" "You let Patterson finish his entire quarterly report without interrupting once. In 12 years, I've never seen you do that." "Maybe I wanted to hear what he had to say." David stared at her like she had grown a second head. "Are you feeling okay? Do you need to see someone?" Victoria almost laughed. "I'm fine, David. Better than fine, actually." But the truth was more complicated. She was better in some ways, and completely lost in others. The walls she had spent decades building were developing cracks, and she didn't know what would come through once they fell. She saw Marcus twice more during those 3 weeks. Once in the hallway at midnight when she was working late and he was starting his shift. They exchanged nods, nothing more. The second time she found him in the break room with Hope, who was doing homework while her father prepared his cleaning supplies. "Victoria." He acknowledged her with a slight nod. "Late night. Board report. You?" "Same old." Hope looked up from her math worksheet. Are you the lady who came to my recital? I am. You looked different then, less tired. Victoria smiled despite herself. You're very observant. Daddy says I have my mom's eyes. She saw everything. The words hit Victoria harder than she expected. She looked at Marcus, who had gone very still. She did, he said quietly. Your mama saw the whole world in every little thing. Hope returned to her homework satisfied with the answer. But something had shifted in the air. Victoria excused herself and returned to her office carrying the weight of that small exchange like a stone in her pocket. The crisis came without warning. 4 weeks after the supercar incident, Victoria was in a meeting with her executive team when Harrison Cole burst through the door. His face was gray. His hands were shaking. Miss Crane, we have a problem. Harrison, we're in the middle of... The Norwegian turbines, 3 of them just failed, simultaneously. The room went cold. The Norwegian project was Reynolds Dynamics' flagship initiative. 2 years of development. $4 billion in projected revenue, 12 massive offshore wind turbines designed to revolutionize sustainable energy production. Victoria stood. Failed how? Complete mechanical seizure. The unit spun up to optimal speed and then locked. No warning, no error codes. They just stopped. Which 3? Units 4, 7, and 11. Were there any commonalities? Installation dates, maintenance schedules? Nothing, that's the problem. The units that failed are identical to the ones that didn't. Same materials, same assembly process, same everything. Victoria's mind raced through the implications. 3 failed turbines meant the Norwegian Energy Consortium would be asking questions. Hard questions. The kind that could unravel a $500 million contract. The kind that could trigger cascading failures across their entire renewable energy division. Get me everything. Design specs, installation logs, environmental data, maintenance records. I want every piece of information we have on those turbines in the main conference room within the hour. The next 72 hours were a nightmare. Victoria's engineering team worked around the clock. They analyzed data until their eyes bled. They ran simulations until the computers overheated. They consulted with experts in 3 countries, and they found nothing. The turbines that failed and the turbines that worked were identical in every measurable way. There was no pattern, no explanation, no solution. On day 3, the Norwegian consortium threatened to cancel the entire contract. Other clients began calling, worried about their own installations. The press got hold of the story. Reynolds Dynamics' green energy dream turns to nightmare. One headline read, "The board called an emergency meeting. Victoria sat at the head of the table surrounded by 12 men who had never fully accepted her leadership and were now sensing blood in the water. The stock has dropped 14% in 3 days." Richard Harmon, the oldest board member, didn't bother hiding his contempt. "Shareholders are panicking. We need answers, Miss Crane." "We're working on it." "Working on it isn't good enough. We've invested $2 billion in this project. If it fails, we're looking at bankruptcy." "I'm aware of the stakes, Richard." "Are you? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you've lost control of this company." Victoria felt her jaw tighten. "I haven't lost control of anything." "Then explain to me why 4 weeks ago you were throwing keys at janitors, and now you can't explain why our turbines are failing." The room went silent. Victoria's hands curled into fists under the table. "That incident has nothing to do with... It has everything to do with this." Harmon leaned forward. "You've been distracted, unfocused. People are talking about how you've changed, how you're softer, less decisive. This company needs a leader, Victoria, not whatever you've become." The words cut deep, deeper than Victoria wanted to admit, because part of her wondered if he was right. Had she lost her edge? Had learning to listen made her weak? "I'll fix this," she said, her voice steady despite the storm inside. "Give me 1 week." "You have 3 days." The meeting adjourned. Victoria remained in her seat, staring at the empty chairs, feeling the walls closing in. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Heard about the turbines. If you need help, you know where to find me. Marcus. She stared at the message for a long time. Her pride screamed at her to delete it. To solve this herself. To prove to Harmon and everyone else that she didn't need help from anyone, especially not a janitor. But then she remembered Hope's piano recital. The way the music had filled the room. The way being present, really present, had felt like breathing after years underwater. She typed back, "Conference room B, midnight tonight. Bring Hope if you need to." At 11:47 p.m., Victoria sat alone in conference room B, surrounded by screens displaying turbine schematics, environmental data, and failure reports. The coffee in her cup had gone cold hours ago. Her eyes burned from staring at numbers that refused to make sense. The door opened. Marcus walked in, Hope beside him, half asleep, but refusing to stay home. Janet Morrison followed, carrying a blanket and a pillow. "She insisted on coming," Marcus said. "Janet's going to set her up in the corner." Victoria nodded. "Thank you, Janet." "Don't thank me yet." Janet spread the blanket on a couch by the window. "You better fix this mess, Miss Crane. I've got 22 years invested in this company. I'm not ready to lose my pension because some machines decided to throw a tantrum." She helped Hope settle in, then left without another word. Marcus approached the screens. His eyes moved across the data with an intensity Victoria recognized from the garage. The look of a man who was listening to something beyond the visible. "Tell me everything." Victoria walked him through it. The timeline, the failures, the identical specifications, the complete absence of pattern or explanation. She showed him the simulations, the maintenance logs, the environmental reports. Marcus listened without interrupting. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment. "You're looking at this wrong." "What do you mean? You're treating this like an engineering problem. It's not. 3 turbines seized simultaneously. How is that not an engineering problem?" "Because the engineering is perfect. I can see that from the specs. Whoever designed these knew what they were doing." He moved closer to one of the screens. "The problem isn't in what you built. It's in what you're not seeing. We've analyzed every variable." "No, you've analyzed every variable you measured. That's not the same thing." Victoria felt a flicker of the old frustration, the urge to dismiss him, to assert her expertise to maintain control. She pushed it down. "What am I not seeing? I don't know yet. I need to hear them." "Hear them?" "The turbines. Do you have audio recordings? Not data analysis. Raw sound files from when they failed." Victoria pulled up another folder. "We have monitoring systems on each unit. They record everything. Play the failures. All 3. In sequence." She queued up the recordings. The first turbine's audio began a steady hum that built in pitch and intensity, then suddenly stuttered and went silent. "Again," Marcus said. She played it again. And again. Each time Marcus listened with his eyes closed, his head tilted at that familiar angle. Now the second one. Same pattern. Building hum. Sudden stutter. Silence. And the third. Identical. Marcus opened his eyes. "Do you have audio from the turbines that didn't fail?" Victoria found the files. Played them. The sound was similar, but not identical. The hum built in the same way, but there was no stutter, just smooth, continuous operation. "There." Marcus pointed at the screen, even though there was nothing visible to point at. "Hear that? Hear what they sound almost the same." "Almost. But the failed units have a secondary frequency, very low, below what most people can consciously detect. It's there in all 3 failures, and it's not present in the working units." Victoria leaned closer to the speakers, straining to hear what he was describing. She heard nothing. "I can't hear it." "You're not supposed to, but the turbines can." He moved to a keyboard, started typing. Victoria watched as he pulled up audio analysis software and began isolating frequency bands. There. He pointed at a spike on the waveform. That's your problem. What is it? External vibration, very low frequency, coming from somewhere outside the turbine itself. Outside? What could possibly? Ocean currents. Hope's voice came from the corner. She was sitting up wrapped in her blanket, watching them with sleepy eyes. The water is singing to them. Marcus smiled. That's right, sweetheart. The water is singing. Victoria stared at the little girl. How did you know that? The sound. Hope yawned. It's like when the washing machine next door rumbles. You can't really hear it, but you feel it in your tummy. The turbines feel the water in their tummy. Marcus turned back to Victoria. She's right. The 3 failed turbines are in locations with unusual ocean current patterns. The currents create low-frequency vibrations that your sensors weren't designed to detect. But 6 weeks ago, you installed new monitoring software that increased the sensitivity of your stress sensors. Victoria's breath caught. How did you know about the software update? I clean the engineering floor, Victoria. I hear things. I read things people leave on their desks. He pulled up more data. The new software lowered the threshold for automatic shutdown. The turbines aren't failing, they're protecting themselves. They're detecting vibrations that are technically within safe parameters, but the software interprets them as stress indicators and triggers an emergency stop. So the turbines are fine. The turbines are perfect. Your software is too sensitive. It's like giving someone a smoke detector that goes off every time they light a candle. Victoria sank into a chair. The relief was overwhelming, followed immediately by fury. Weeks of panic. Millions of dollars in potential losses. A board meeting where she'd been humiliated, and the answer had been there all along, hidden in sounds no one thought to listen for. Can we fix it? Easily. Adjust the sensitivity threshold by 0.05% and add a filter to distinguish between external and internal vibrations. The shutdowns will stop. How long? A few hours for the software patch, a day to test it. Your turbines will be running by the end of the week. Victoria looked at him, at this man in a janitor's uniform who had just saved her company, her career, her everything. Why? The question came out before she could stop it. Why did you help me, after what I did to you? Marcus was quiet for a moment. He glanced at Hope, who had fallen back asleep on the couch, her small chest rising and falling peacefully. When Sarah died, I blamed everyone. The drunk driver, the doctors, God, myself. I spent 2 years drowning in that blame, and it almost killed me. He turned to face Victoria fully. Then one day Hope asked me why I never smiled anymore. She said she missed my smile, and I realized that I had a choice. I could spend the rest of my life punishing the world for taking Sarah, or I could spend it making sure our daughter knew what love looked like. That doesn't explain why you helped me. Yes, it does. He walked to the couch, gently adjusted the blanket around Hope's shoulders. You made a mistake. You hurt me. But I've made mistakes too. I've hurt people. And somewhere along the way, someone chose to forgive me instead of holding a grudge. That's how it works, Victoria. That's how any of us survive. We mess up. We get forgiven. We try to do better. Victoria felt tears threatening again. She blinked them back. I'm not sure I deserve forgiveness. Maybe not. But Hope doesn't get to keep her father if I drink myself to death over things I can't change. And your employees don't get to keep their jobs if you spend your energy beating yourself up instead of fixing problems. He met her eyes. Forgiveness isn't about deserving. It's about choosing to move forward instead of backward. The conference room was quiet, except for Hope's soft breathing. Victoria stood slowly. Walked to the window. The city spread out below millions of lights, millions of lives, all connected in ways she had never stopped to consider. The board meeting was brutal, she said quietly. They think I've gone soft. That learning to listen has made me weak. Has it? She considered the question. I don't know. I used to be so certain about everything. Now I'm certain about almost nothing. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. It doesn't feel like wisdom. It feels like drowning. Marcus joined her at the window. When Hope was learning to swim, she panicked every time her feet couldn't touch the bottom. She thrashed and screamed and swallowed water. Took her months to learn that the drowning feeling wasn't dangerous, it was just fear. Once she stopped fighting it, she floated. So I should stop fighting. I'm saying the fear of drowning and actually drowning aren't the same thing. Your board thinks you're weak because you're changing, but change isn't weakness. Staying the same when the same isn't working, that's weakness. Victoria turned to look at him. You really think I'm doing the right thing? Learning to listen, opening up. I think you're doing a hard thing. The right thing and the hard thing are usually the same. She nodded slowly. What if I can't do this? What if I go back to who I was? You won't. How do you know? Because you came here tonight. You asked for help. The old Victoria would have burned the building down before admitting she needed anyone. He smiled slightly. You're already different. You just haven't realized it yet. Hope stirred on the couch. Daddy, is it time to go home? Almost, sweetheart. Just a few more minutes. Okay. She burrowed deeper into the blanket. I like it here. It's quiet. Marcus looked at Victoria. We should go. You have work to do. Marcus, wait. She caught his arm as he turned toward his daughter. The software fix. Will you oversee it? I'll pay you. I'll oversee it, but not for money. Then what? He thought for a moment. There's a community center on 8th Street. They've been trying to start an after-school program for kids whose parents work late. They need funding. Done. You don't even know how much. I don't care how much. Done. Marcus smiled. A real smile, the kind that changed his whole face. You know, Victoria, you might actually be a good person underneath all that armor. Don't spread it around. I have a reputation to maintain. Your secret's safe with me. He lifted Hope, gently cradling her against his chest. She mumbled something about piano practice and fell back asleep. At the door, he paused. The software patch. Have Harrison send me the access codes. I'll start tonight. Tonight, you've already been here for hours. Turbines don't care about sleep schedules. Neither do problems worth solving. He left. Victoria stood alone in the conference room, surrounded by screens showing data she now understood, feeling something she hadn't felt in years. Hope. Not the little girl. The concept. The thing stronger than fear. She picked up her phone and called Harrison. It's Victoria. Wake up your team. I know what's wrong with the turbines, and I know how to fix it. The software patch worked. Within 48 hours, all 12 turbines were spinning at full capacity. The Norwegian consortium withdrew their cancellation threat. The stock recovered. The headlines shifted from catastrophe to triumph. Reynolds Dynamics CEO solves mystery turbine failure, the papers announced. Innovative diagnostic approach saves billion-dollar project. Victoria read the articles and felt nothing. The victory was hollow because it wasn't hers. Marcus had solved the problem. She had just been smart enough to ask for help. The board meeting 3 days later was a different kind of test. Richard Harmon sat at the far end of the table, his face arranged in careful neutrality. The other board members shifted in their seats, uncertain how to read the room. Victoria had saved the company, but Harmon had tasted blood, and men like him never forgot the scent. The turbines are operational, Victoria began. Revenue projections remain on track. Our Norwegian partners have expressed renewed confidence in the project. Impressive recovery. Harmon's voice carried no warmth. But I have questions about the methodology. Of course. The diagnostic approach that identified the problem. It's not in any of our standard protocols. Harrison Cole's report mentions something about audio analysis and low-frequency vibration detection. That's correct. And this approach was suggested by... Harmon consulted his notes, though Victoria knew he didn't need them. A custodial worker. The room went still. Marcus Webb is a consultant who assisted with the diagnosis, yes. A consultant. Harmon's smile was thin. Is that what we're calling janitors now? We're calling them whatever they prove themselves to be. Mr. Webb identified a problem that our entire engineering team missed. His background in acoustic engineering. His background as a night cleaner, you mean? Victoria felt her jaw tighten. Mr. Webb holds 3 patents with the Department of Defense. He graduated top of his class from MIT. He worked on classified military projects for 8 years before choosing a different path. Choosing a different path. Harmon laughed softly. That's a charming way to describe someone who failed at their career and ended up mopping floors. He didn't fail. He made a choice. Victoria, I'm not questioning your judgment in this particular instance. The turbines are working. That's what matters. Harmon leaned forward. But I am questioning the pattern. 4 weeks ago, you assaulted this same man in front of witnesses. Now you're crediting him with saving a billion-dollar project. It raises concerns. What kind of concerns? The kind that make shareholders nervous. The kind that make them wonder if their CEO is stable. Victoria felt the old rage building. The same rage that had made her throw those keys. The same rage that had protected her for years kept her sharp, kept her untouchable. But she also remembered what Marcus had said. The fear of drowning and actually drowning aren't the same thing. Richard, I made a mistake 4 weeks ago. I've apologized for it. I've learned from it. And yes, I've changed as a result. If that makes me unstable in your view, then we have different definitions of stability. What I see is a CEO who has lost her edge, who suddenly cares more about feelings than results. The results are in front of you. 12 working turbines, $500 million secured. A partnership stronger than before. Results that required outside help from a janitor. Results are results. I don't care who produces them. That's exactly what concerns me. Harmon stood. Ladies and gentlemen, I move that we conduct a formal review of Miss Crane's leadership. 6 months of evaluation. Full transparency with shareholders. If there are no objections. I object. The voice came from the far end of the table. Eleanor Morrison, 71. The longest-serving board member founder's daughter rarely spoke in meetings anymore. When she did, people listened. Eleanor. Harmon's surprise was evident. This is a procedural matter. This is a witch hunt, Richard, and we both know it. Eleanor's voice was calm but carried steel beneath the surface. Victoria made an error in judgment. She owned it. She corrected it. And then she solved a problem that could have bankrupted this company. By relying on a janitor, by using every resource available to her, that's what good leaders do. Eleanor turned to face the full board. My father built this company by listening to people others dismissed. He hired immigrants when no one else would. He promoted women when the industry laughed at him. He understood that intelligence doesn't care about job titles or tax brackets. She looked at Victoria. I've watched you for 3 years, Miss Crane. I've seen your strengths and your weaknesses. Your intelligence is obvious. Your drive is unquestionable. But your greatest weakness has always been your pride, your inability to ask for help, your belief that needing others is shameful. Victoria felt the words land like blows, each one finding its mark. 4 weeks ago, you humiliated a man because he saw something you couldn't see. That was wrong. But what you did afterward, seeking him out, learning from him, using his expertise to save this company, that was leadership. Real leadership. Eleanor turned back to Harmon. Richard, if you want to conduct a review, that's your right. But I will not support it, and I suspect I'm not alone. The vote was quick. Harmon's motion failed 8-4. Victoria kept her position. But as the board filed out, she caught Eleanor's eye. Thank you. Don't thank me. Eleanor's expression was unreadable. I meant what I said about your pride. It nearly destroyed you once. It will again if you're not careful. I'm working on it. Work harder." Eleanor paused at the door. "And Victoria, that janitor, Marcus Webb, whatever you're paying him, double it. He doesn't want money. Then find out what he does want. People like that are rare. Don't lose him." She left. Victoria sat alone in the empty conference room, Eleanor's words echoing in her mind. Pride. It had been her armor for so long that she'd forgotten it was also her prison. That evening, Victoria found Marcus on the 12th floor cleaning windows that overlooked the city. Hope was with him reading a book in the corner, her lips moving silently as she sounded out difficult words. "The board meeting went well," Victoria said. "I heard." Marcus didn't turn from the window. "Janet told me. News travels fast. Someone tried to remove me, said I'd gone soft. What did you say?" "Nothing eloquent. Another board member saved me." Marcus finally turned. "Eleanor Morrison. You know her. I clean her office. She leaves books on her desk sometimes. Philosophy mostly. Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, the Stoics. She quoted her father, said he built this company by listening to people others dismissed. Sounds like a smart man. He was. I never met him, but I've read about him." Victoria moved closer to the window. The city spread out below, millions of lights blinking like earthbound stars. "Richard Harmon called you a janitor who failed at his career. He's not wrong. He's completely wrong." Marcus shrugged. "Depends on how you measure success. By his standards, I'm a failure. By mine, I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." "And where's that?" "Here." He gestured at the view at his daughter in the corner, at the cleaning supplies beside him. "Present. Available. Alive in a way I wasn't when I was chasing accomplishments. Don't you miss it? The work you used to do?" Marcus was quiet for a moment. "Sometimes. There's a part of my brain that still thinks in equations, still sees problems and immediately starts solving them. But the cost of living in that part of my brain was too high." "What was the cost?" "My wife. My marriage. My presence in my own life." He turned to face her fully. "Sarah used to say I was always somewhere else. Even when I was home, my mind was at work. She'd talk to me and I'd nod without hearing. She'd reach for me and I'd already be gone." "That sounds lonely." It was, for both of us. His voice softened. "The night she died, she called me. Left a voicemail. Said she loved me. Said Hope had learned to tie her shoes that day and wanted to show me. Said she hoped I'd come home soon." Victoria felt her throat tighten. "I didn't hear that message until 2 days later. I was in a secure facility, no phones allowed. By the time I got out, my wife was dead, and my daughter had spent 6 hours alone in a hospital wondering where her daddy was." "Marcus, I'm so sorry." "Don't be sorry. Be different." He met her eyes. "That's the only thing I ask of anyone who hears that story. Don't feel sorry for me. Feel motivated to not make the same mistakes." Hope looked up from her book. "Daddy, what does determined mean?" "It means you decide to do something and you don't stop until you do it. Like when I practiced piano every day even when I didn't want to." "Exactly like that, sweetheart." Hope nodded seriously and returned to her reading. Victoria watched the exchange, feeling something shift in her chest. The ease between father and daughter. The way Marcus gave Hope his full attention for those few seconds as if nothing else in the world existed. "I want to do something," Victoria said. "For the company, for the people who work here, but I need your help." "What kind of help?" "I want to change how we operate, not just the engineering side. Everything. How we treat people, how we listen, how we value contributions regardless of where they come from." "That's a big change." "I know, and I don't know how to do it alone." Marcus studied her for a long moment. "You're serious." "I've never been more serious about anything." "Why?" Because I've spent 3 years running this company the way I thought it should be run. And I've been successful by every metric that matters to shareholders. But I've also been miserable. I've been lonely. I've been so focused on proving myself that I forgot why I wanted to prove anything in the first place. And what do you want now? Victoria thought about the question. Really thought about it the way Marcus had taught her to think, not rushing to an answer, but letting the truth emerge at its own pace. I want to build something that matters, not just for shareholders, for everyone who walks through these doors, for the janitors and the engineers and the assistants and the executives. I want to create a place where people like you don't feel invisible. That's a nice speech. It's not a speech, it's a promise. Promises are easy. Keeping them is hard. I know, that's why I need help. Marcus turned back to the window. The city lights reflected in his eyes a galaxy of human activity that never stopped, never slowed. There's a woman on the 3rd floor, he said quietly. Maria Gonzalez. She's been with the company 15 years. Started in the mailroom, worked her way up to administrative assistant. She has ideas about improving internal communications, but no one ever asks her opinion. How do you know this? I clean her desk. She leaves notebooks full of suggestions that no one reads. Victoria pulled out her phone, made a note. Who else? Thomas Bennett, junior engineer. He's been developing a new approach to thermal efficiency, but Harrison won't look at it because Thomas is too young, too inexperienced. Keep going. Janet Morrison has been suggesting improvements to maintenance protocols for years, small changes that would save thousands of dollars annually. No one listens because she's a cleaning lady. Victoria wrote it all down. Name after name, idea after idea. People who had been invisible because the company had trained itself not to see them. How do you know all this? I told you, I listen. When you clean someone's office at 2 in the morning, you learn things about them. What they're working on, what frustrates them, what dreams they've given up on because the system told them to stay in their lane. And you never said anything. Who would I tell I'm a janitor, Victoria? Nobody asked janitors for insights. The words stung because they were true. For 4 years, Marcus had been moving through this building, gathering information, understanding people in ways that no executive ever could, and no one had thought to ask him anything. Until now. I'm asking, Victoria said. I'm asking you to help me see what I've been missing, not just once, consistently, regularly. I want you to be my eyes and ears in the parts of this company I never visit. That's a lot of trust to place in someone who mops floors. It's exactly the right amount of trust to place in someone who fixed my car, saved my turbines, and taught me how to listen. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Hope had finished her chapter and was watching them now, her dark eyes moving between her father and the CEO, as if she could sense the importance of the conversation. There's a condition, Marcus said finally. Name it. I keep my night job. I keep my schedule. I keep being present for my daughter. If you need me during the day, you work around her school schedule. Done. And I want you to do something else, something that might be harder than changing company culture. What? I want you to take a day off, a real day. No phone, no email, no work at all. I want you to spend it doing something that has nothing to do with Reynolds Dynamics. Victoria blinked. That's your condition. One of them. Why? Because you can't teach people to listen if you don't know how to hear your own life. You've been running so long, you don't remember what standing still feels like. Until you do, you'll never really understand what you're asking of others. The challenge hung in the air. Victoria thought about her calendar, the meetings, the calls, the constant motion that had defined her existence for as long as she could remember. When was the last time she'd taken a day off? Really off, she couldn't remember. Okay, she said. One day. No work. Good. Marcus picked up his cleaning supplies. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have 3 more floors to finish before my shift ends. Marcus, he paused. Thank you. For everything. For fixing the car. for saving the turbines, for not giving up on me when you had every reason to. Don't thank me yet, the hard part hasn't started. What's the hard part? Living up to everything you just said. Promises are easy, Victoria. Keeping them is where most people fail. He walked toward the elevator, Hope skipping beside him, one hand holding her book, and the other gripping her father's sleeve. Victoria watched them go. Then she pulled out her phone and did something she hadn't done in years. She opened her calendar and blocked out an entire day. Saturday. Nothing scheduled, nothing planned. The blank space stared back at her, terrifying and liberating in equal measure. For the first time since she'd become CEO, Victoria Crane had no idea what she was going to do. And somehow, that felt like progress. The next morning, she arrived at work earlier than usual. The building was quiet, most employees not yet arrived. She took the elevator to the third floor and found Maria Gonzalez's desk. It was neat, organized, unremarkable. But there beside the keyboard sat a notebook. Well-worn, filled with handwriting. Victoria picked it up, began to read. Page after page of ideas. Ways to improve communication between departments. Suggestions for streamlining processes. Observations about inefficiencies that everyone saw, but no one addressed. Maria Gonzalez had been with the company 15 years, had watched it grow and change and stumble, had understood its problems better than most executives, and no one had ever asked her opinion. Victoria closed the notebook, placed it back exactly where she'd found it. Then she walked to her office and sent an email. Maria, I'd like to meet with you today. I have some questions about internal communications, and I understand you have insights that could help. Please let me know when you're available. Victoria Crane. She sent similar emails to Thomas Bennett, to Janet Morrison, to a dozen other names Marcus had given her. Then she sat back in her chair and waited. The responses began arriving within minutes. Surprised, cautious, hopeful. By noon, her calendar was full of meetings with people she'd never spoken to directly in her 3 years as CEO. People who had been invisible. People who were about to be seen. The first meeting was with Maria Gonzalez. She arrived at Victoria's office looking nervous, clutching the same notebook Victoria had seen that morning. Miss Crane, I'm not sure what this is about. Victoria, please call me Victoria. She gestured to a chair. And this is about you, Maria. Your ideas. The things you've been writing in that notebook for years. Maria's face went pale. How did you know about my notebook? Someone told me. Someone who pays attention to the people this company overlooks. The janitor, Marcus. Does it matter? Maria was quiet for a moment. Then she sat down, clutching the notebook like a lifeline. I've been with this company 15 years. She said slowly. I've watched it change, grow. I've seen things that work and things that don't. But nobody ever asks people like me what we think. We're just supposed to answer phones and schedule meetings. I'm asking now. Maria looked at her. Really looked the way Marcus looked, searching for something beneath the surface. Why? Why now? Why me? Because I've been running this company with my eyes closed. I thought I knew everything because I had the biggest title. But I was wrong. The people closest to the problems usually have the best solutions. I just never thought to ask them. Maria opened her notebook. Her hands were trembling slightly. I have ideas about interdepartmental communication, about how information gets lost between teams, about why projects fail when all the pieces should work. Show me. Maria turned to the first page and began explaining. Victoria listened, really listened the way she was learning to do. And for the first time in her career, she understood what she'd been missing. The real expertise wasn't in the corner offices or the boardrooms. It was everywhere. In every desk, in every department, in every person who came to work each day and saw things that leaders were too busy to notice. All you had to do was ask. All you had to do was listen. 6 months changed everything. Victoria's meetings with invisible employees became a weekly ritual. Maria Gonzalez's communication system was implemented company-wide, cutting interdepartmental delays by 40%. Thomas Bennett's thermal efficiency research earned a patent. Janet Morrison's maintenance protocols saved the company $200,000 in the first quarter alone. But the changes went deeper than numbers. Engineers started eating lunch with maintenance staff. Executives began visiting the floors they'd never set foot on. The suggestion box that had sat empty for years overflowed with ideas, and people actually read them. Marcus remained the night janitor who occasionally consulted on impossible problems. He refused every promotion, every title, every corner office Victoria offered him. His answer was always the same: "I've got everything I need." Hope turned 8 in April. Victoria attended her birthday party sitting cross-legged on Marcus's apartment floor, eating cake with her fingers, while Hope opened presents, surrounded by school friends who had no idea the woman in jeans and a t-shirt ran a $14 billion company. "You came," Marcus said quietly, watching his daughter tear into wrapping paper. "I said I would." "Lots of people say things." Victoria smiled. "I'm learning to be different." The real test came in September. Reynolds Dynamics was bidding on the largest contract in company history, a joint venture with the European Union to build sustainable energy infrastructure across 12 countries, $200 billion over 15 years. The kind of project that could define a generation. The competition was fierce. 3 other companies were vying for the contract, including Chen Industries, run by Victoria's former mentor and current rival, William Chen. The final presentations were scheduled for Brussels. Each company had 2 hours to make their case to a panel of EU officials, energy experts, and environmental advocates. Victoria's team prepared for weeks. PowerPoints were perfected. Data was analyzed. Every possible question was anticipated and answered. The night before the presentation, Victoria sat in her hotel room staring at the materials spread across her bed. Something felt wrong. She couldn't identify it, but the feeling persisted, a nagging sense that they were missing something important. Her phone buzzed. Marcus. "Can't sleep." His voice came through. "How did you know?" "Because I know you, and because important things always keep people awake." Victoria laughed despite herself. "I'm supposed to be ready. We've prepared for everything, but something feels off." "What does your gut tell you?" "That's the problem. I don't know. It's like hearing a sound you can't quite identify." Marcus was quiet for a moment. "What's the presentation about?" "Sustainable energy infrastructure. Technical specifications. Cost projections. Environmental impact assessments." "And who are you presenting to?" "EU officials. Energy experts. Environmental advocates." "Tell me about the advocates." Victoria frowned. "What about them? Who are they? What do they care about? Why are they in that room?" They care about the environment, climate change, sustainability. That's what they care about professionally. What do they care about personally?" The question stopped Victoria cold. She had spent weeks preparing technical data, financial projections, engineering specifications. She hadn't spent a single minute thinking about the human beings who would be listening. "I don't know." "Then find out." Whoa. Victoria spent the next 3 hours researching. Not the organizations, the people. She learned that Elena Vasquez, the lead environmental advocate, had lost her home in a flood caused by rising sea levels. That Johann Muller had spent 20 years fighting coal companies that poisoned his childhood town. That Amara Okonkwo had watched her country's forests disappear and dedicated her life to preventing the same fate elsewhere. These weren't abstract policymakers. They were people who had been hurt, who had lost things, who had chosen to fight because the alternative was unbearable. By morning, Victoria had rewritten her entire presentation. The other companies went first. Chen Industries delivered a flawless technical presentation. Precise, professional, impressive in every measurable way. Victoria watched from the waiting room, feeling the old anxiety rising. William Chen was brilliant. His company was excellent. His presentation was exactly what these officials expected to see, and that she realized was the problem. When her turn came, Victoria walked to the podium without her notes. The PowerPoint behind her remained on the title slide. "I had a presentation prepared," she began. 200 slides of technical specifications, financial projections, environmental impact assessments, everything you'd expect from a company asking for $200 billion. She paused. The room was silent. "But last night I learned something that changed everything. I learned that Dr. Elena Vasquez lost her home in 2019 to a flood that climate scientists had predicted a decade earlier. I learned that Mr. Johann Mueller spent his childhood watching his neighbors get sick from pollution that companies promised was safe. I learned that Dr. Amara Okonkwo has dedicated her life to protecting forests because she's seen what happens when they disappear." Elena Vasquez leaned forward in her seat. Johann Mueller's expression shifted from skepticism to attention. Amara Okonkwo's eyes narrowed, waiting. "I could show you charts and graphs. I could demonstrate our technical superiority. I could prove that Reynolds Dynamics is the logical choice. But logic didn't bring you here today. Pain brought you here. Loss brought you here. The knowledge that something is broken and the determination to fix it before it's too late." Victoria stepped away from the podium. "I'm not going to ask you to trust our technology. I'm going to ask you to trust our people. The engineers who chose this field because they believe in something bigger than profit. The workers who stay late, not because they're told to, but because they care. The janitor who taught me that the best solutions come from listening instead of talking." She saw confusion on some faces, curiosity on others. "6 months ago, I was a different person. I ran my company like a machine, measuring everything that could be quantified and ignoring everything that couldn't. I thought listening was weakness. I thought asking for help was failure. I thought success meant never needing anyone. Then I met someone who showed me how wrong I was. A man who gave up a brilliant career to be present for his daughter, who chose to be invisible because the alternative cost too much, who fixed a $3 million car by closing his eyes and listening to what the engine was trying to say. That man taught me that the most sophisticated technology in the world is useless if we forget to hear what it's telling us. That the people closest to problems usually have the best solutions. That real leadership isn't about having all the answers, it's about asking the right questions." Victoria looked at each person on the panel. "You're not looking for a company that can build turbines. You're looking for a partner who understands what's at stake, who sees the floods and the pollution and the disappearing forests, not as statistics, but as the lived experiences of real people. Who will fight for this planet the way you've been fighting, not because it's profitable, but because it's right." She returned to the podium. "I can't promise we'll never make mistakes. I can't promise our technology will be perfect, but I can promise that when problems arise, we'll listen. When communities raise concerns, we'll hear them. When the data tells us one thing and the people tell us another, we'll pay attention to both. Because that's what I've learned these past 6 months. The numbers matter. The technology matters. But the people matter most, and a company that forgets that doesn't deserve your trust." She clicked to the next slide. Her technical presentation appeared. "Now, if you want to see the specs, I'm happy to walk through them. But I wanted you to know who you'd be working with first. Not a company, not a corporation. People. Imperfect learning, trying to do better people." The room was silent. Then Elena Vasquez spoke. "Miss Crane, in 20 years of evaluating proposals, no one has ever started by acknowledging our personal experiences. No one has ever suggested that our pain is relevant to a business decision. It's the most relevant thing there is. Your competitors have better numbers in some areas. I know. Chen Industries has more experience with projects of this scale. I know that too. So why should we choose you? Victoria thought about Marcus. About hope. About the morning in the parking garage when everything changed. Because we're not the same company we were 6 months ago. We're not going to be the same company 6 months from now. We're learning, growing, becoming something better than what we were. She met Elena's eyes. And because I know what it feels like to lose something precious and wish you had listened sooner. I don't want that for anyone. Not for your communities. Not for your countries. Not for this planet. The panel deliberated for 3 weeks. Victoria returned to work, refusing to obsess over the outcome. She continued her meetings with invisible employees. She attended Hope's piano lessons. She learned to cook from Marcus, badly burning more meals than she served. The call came on a Tuesday. Miss Crane, this is Elena Vasquez. The panel has made its decision. Victoria's heart stopped. We've chosen Reynolds Dynamics. She exhaled. Thank you. We won't let you down. I know you won't. And Miss Crane, that janitor you mentioned, the one who taught you to listen. Whatever you're paying him, it's not enough. Victoria laughed. He doesn't want money. Then find out what he wants. People like that are rare. The celebration at Reynolds Dynamics lasted 3 days. Champagne flowed. Bonuses were announced. The stock hit an all-time high. But Victoria spent most of the celebration in the 4th-floor break room eating pizza with Marcus and Hope, and Janet Morrison, and Maria Gonzalez, and Thomas Bennett, and all the other people who had been invisible, until someone thought to look. To the night janitor, Janet raised her soda cup. Who saved this company by paying attention? To the CEO, Marcus replied. Who was smart enough to listen? To Hope, Victoria added. Who told me that saying sorry isn't enough? You have to show it. Hope beamed pizza sauce on her chin. Can we have ice cream now? They had ice cream. 1 year after the supercar incident, Victoria organized a gathering in the parking garage where it all began. Marcus was there with Hope. Harrison Cole, who had become one of Marcus's closest colleagues. Janet and Maria and Thomas, and dozens of others who had helped transform the company. The Koenigsegg sat in its usual spot, gleaming under the fluorescent lights. 1 year ago, Victoria began. I threw my keys at this man's face, drew blood, called him worthless. It was the worst moment of my life, and the best thing that ever happened to me. She looked at Marcus. I've spent 12 months trying to be worthy of the lesson you taught me. I'm not sure I've succeeded, but I'm still trying, and I think that's the point. Marcus smiled, that real smile that transformed his face. You want to know what Sarah used to say? She said that trying is just another word for loving. Every time you try to be better, you're saying, I love this world enough to not give up on it. He looked at Hope, then back at Victoria. You've been trying for 12 months. That's a lot of love. Victoria felt the tears she'd learned to stop fighting. Let them fall. I have a gift for you, she said. For both of you. She pulled an envelope from her jacket, handed it to Marcus. He opened it, read the contents. His face went very still. Victoria. The company is funding an after-school program in Sarah's name. The Sarah Webb Center for Young Engineers. It will teach kids from underserved communities about acoustic engineering, mechanical design, everything you learned at MIT. And you'll run it, not as a janitor, as a teacher. Hope grabbed her father's arm. Daddy, does this mean you get to teach kids like me? Marcus couldn't speak. For the first time since Victoria had known him, words failed him. The night janitor position is still yours if you want it, Victoria continued. The teaching is extra. We'll work around Hope's schedule just like you asked, and every single student who comes through that program will learn the most important lesson you taught me. What's that? That the answers aren't always in the data. That the people closest to problems have the best solutions. That listening isn't weakness, it's wisdom. Marcus looked at the letter in his hands, at the company logo, at Sarah's name printed in elegant script. She would have loved this. he said quietly. I hope so. No. He looked up. Not hope. She would have loved this. I know it. The way I know my own heartbeat. He folded the letter carefully, put it in his pocket. Then he did something Victoria had never seen him do. He hugged her. The garage fell silent. The CEO of a $14 billion company embracing the night janitor in front of everyone. Thank you, Marcus whispered, for listening, for learning, for giving Sarah's name to something that matters. Thank you, Victoria whispered back, for not giving up on me when you had every reason to. They separated. Hope was bouncing on her heels. Does this mean Daddy's famous now? Marcus laughed. Not famous, sweetheart, just useful. That's better, Hope declared. Famous people are weird. Useful people make things better. Victoria looked at the little girl who had seen the truth from the very beginning, who had known that the car sounded sick because she listened in a way adults forgot how to do. Hope you're going to change the world someday. I know, Hope said matter-of-factly. But first I need to finish third grade. Ms. Patterson says I'm behind on my times tables. The laughter that followed was the kind that comes from joy rather than jokes. The kind that builds community. The kind that reminds everyone present that they're part of something bigger than themselves. Victoria stood by her supercar long after the others had left. The engine was silent. The garage was empty. But she could still feel the echoes of what had happened here. 1 year ago, she had been drowning, suffocating under the weight of expectations she had placed on herself, building walls so high that no one could reach her and nothing could touch her. Then a man in a janitor's uniform had taught her to listen, to hear the sounds beneath the sounds, to see the people behind the positions, to understand that the most sophisticated technology in the world means nothing without the wisdom to use it well. She placed her hand on the car's hood. The metal was cool beneath her palm. Thank you, she said quietly. To the car. To the universe. To Sarah Webb wherever she was. Thank you for braking when I needed you to. She walked out of the garage, leaving the supercar behind. She didn't need armor anymore. 2 years later, the Sarah Webb Center graduated its first class. 47 students from communities that rarely produced engineers. Kids who had been told they couldn't. Who had been invisible. Who had learned to listen to machines the way Marcus listened with patience and attention and love. Victoria spoke at the graduation. Marcus sat in the front row. Hope beside him now 10 years old and already talking about MIT. You're entering a world that will try to make you invisible, Victoria told the graduates. That will measure your worth by your titles instead of your ideas. That will ask you to prove yourself over and over again, while simultaneously making that proof impossible to achieve. She looked at Marcus. But you have something that world doesn't understand. You know how to listen. You know that the answers aren't always in the data. You know that the people closest to problems have the best solutions. And you know that wisdom doesn't care about job titles or tax brackets or the color of your skin. She stepped away from the podium. Go out there and listen. Pay attention to the sounds nobody else hears. Trust yourself even when the world tells you not to. And when someone throws keys at your face when someone tries to make you feel small, remember this. They're not seeing you. They're seeing their own fear reflected back at them. The best revenge isn't anger. It's becoming who they told you that you couldn't be. The graduates applauded. Parents cried. Marcus sat quietly, his arm around Hope, watching the seeds he had planted grow into something beautiful. After the ceremony, Victoria found him by the refreshment table. Nice speech, he said. I learned from the best. You learned from a janitor. I learned from a man who understood what matters. They stood together watching the graduates celebrate. What now? Victoria asked. Now. Marcus considered the question. Now I go home, cook dinner, help Hope with her homework, clean some floors. He smiled. Live my life. That's it. That's everything. He met her eyes. What about you? Victoria thought about the question, about the company she had transformed, the contract she had won, the people she had learned to see, the walls she had torn down. I think I'm going to learn to play piano, she said. Hope's been offering to teach me. Marcus laughed. She's a demanding teacher, doesn't accept excuses. Good. I've made enough excuses for one lifetime. They walked out of the center together, the CEO and the janitor, into a world that had tried to keep them apart and failed. Because in the end, the most important repairs aren't made with technology. They're made with attention, with respect, with the willingness to believe that everyone has something to teach us. That's what a supercar that wouldn't start taught Victoria Crane. That's what a single father taught a building full of engineers. That's what a 7-year-old girl understood before anyone else, that sometimes machines get sick, and the only cure is someone who knows how to listen. The sound of everything important is already there waiting to be heard. All you have to do is stop. Close your eyes and listen.